Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres-Dwyer, accompanied by my usual co-host, Efrain Rosario. Hi, Efrain, good to see you.
Hey, Daniel, good to be with you.
So probably the audience is aware that you live between Paris and Amsterdam. Now, you've been living in Paris for longer. And when you moved to Amsterdam, around a year and a half ago, maybe a bit more, you started doing your life there and so on and going to supermarkets. What would you say is the typical Dutch supermarket?
Without question for me, it's Albert Heijn. There's not a week that goes by that I'm not in one of their stores picking up something, to either some sort of household item or something to cook for that night. So yeah, I would say Albert Heijn for sure.
Yeah, well, it's not your perception, because even if they have a lot of competition from other Dutch players, international players like discounters, they're indeed the clear dominant in the Dutch grocery market. When I lived in the Netherlands for 6 months as well, they were, and you saw them everywhere. Their iconic bags, for example. And they're also part of the Ahold Delhaize group, which is one of the big players in the grocery retail segment with 60 million shoppers across 10 countries like the US or Indonesia. And today we're going to talk about a recurrent topic this year in the industry and on the podcast, which is retail media. For this, we've invited Rolf Oosterhoff, who's currently heading up retail media for Albert Heijn. And we're excited to have him on the show to speak about how brands are leveraging their visibility, their innovations in the Netherlands for that market, plus how they are welcoming non-endemic brands to their ecosystem, which we know sounds like a new term, but you'll learn more about it in the show.
I'm Rolf Oosterhoff. I work for Albert Heijn, and currently I'm in the role of head of retail media, also at Albert Heijn. So that's my responsibility.
That's excellent. Well, Rolf, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Looking forward to hearing more about what you all have already created and are cooking up in the retail media space. Can you give us a little bit of insight with regards to, in your role as head of retail media, what does that encompass at Albert Heijn?
Yeah, so I think more or less 10 years ago, we start building the retail media practice at Albert Heijn. I think we were one of the first, at least in Europe, to start building a retail media network from a food retailer perspective. And simply said, we're helping brands to tell their stories, to market their brands throughout our network at Albert Heijn. And obviously, in the beginning, 10 years ago, that was mainly focused on in-store inventory, so in-store touchpoints, where we communicate with our customers. But in the past 10 years, things also have moved more and more online. So also in the online shopping experience of customers, there are much more possibilities now to engage with customers from a brand perspective. But in-store is still quite important. So there's a movement towards online, but still the in-store possibilities are quite huge and also quite impactful.
Yeah, actually, I think that in-store, there was a lot of conversation on retail media last year, but I think that what I'm hearing a lot is how do you translate that into the in-store experience now?
Yeah, that's true. And that's I think also really the strength of what we offer, that we can offer so many touch points in store and online. And we also try to, and I think we manage quite well, to make it seamless with the shopping experience of the customer. So because our biggest advantage is that the customer, they're in a shopping behavior, they're willing to buy, but they don't want to get irritated about a lot of non-relevant communication. So because it's very seamless and it's often also targeted, that really helps to be really effective on the advertising part of the business. And so in my responsibility, I'm heading a team, more or less 60 people. And with all these people, we try to help brands to tell their stories as good as possible. So that's more or less our mission.
And can you give us, just to set the scene, a bit of an idea of like the Dutch retail market, and also interested to know. I think that if you ask them like, what is the Dutch supermarket, they'll mention Albert Heijn, right?
Yeah, sure. That's always a good thing that they'll start with Albert Heijn. That always helps. Albert Heijn is the biggest food retailer in the Netherlands, and I think it has been for quite some years. I think we got a big heritage. The company goes way, way back. So it's quite of an old supermarket chain. And I think we've been growing through the years. And I think several bases of success, but we have quite a large store network in the Netherlands, more than 1,000 stores. I think we're a full service supermarket, so customer experience, customer service, putting the customer first is really one of the main important credos we have within our company. And I think also innovation. We're an old company, but we always want to be ahead of all the trends and customer trends that are out there. So we always try to innovate on a product perspective. So I think we introduced quite some new concepts to the Dutch market in the past years, but also from a customer experience, store experience. We always try to innovate and to help people to shop at Albert Heijn as easy as possible. And then obviously, there's a bigger market with Jumbo plus Lidl. So this is all from a food perspective, more or less.
So Rolf, given like you said that a lot of the value proposition of the Albert Heijn brand is, like you said, it's a combination steeped in both heritage but also in innovation. How have you seen retail media kind of in essence play into that in regards to the evolution of the value proposition that you have for your consumers and your shoppers?
Yeah, so I think through the years, the relevance for retail media, I think, is based on several pillars. But I think one of them, I think Albert Heijn has seen the value of data and knowing shopping data and how customers, how they shop as a very important key strategy to be successful also in the future. So we got quite a big loyalty program, the bonus card, as we say in Dutch, loyalty card. And we got 80% people of our shoppers use that card very frequently. So that really helps us to know what people buy, when they buy it, where they buy it, etc. And that large data pool, first-party data pool, obviously is a unique selling point now at the moment within retail media, because it helps us to target audiences much better, and in that way make the advertisement, the communication the brand will do at our stores or online much more effective.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point. I was just speaking with my colleague here before the conversation, and she was living in the Netherlands a few months ago, and she was telling me about this loyalty card, that everybody she knew that shopped at Albert Heijn used this card. So I'm sure that gives you like a lot of leverage.
Yeah, sure. And then I think a second pillar, which is also quite important, is that as being the biggest supermarket chain in the Netherlands, and obviously in Europe, we also have other big supermarkets as well. We got a huge reach. We interact with customers more than 40 million times a week. So the reach is huge, but also very relevant. So everybody, as I said before, they all want to shop, but they also want to shop in a brand safe environment. So and we can offer that brand safe environment. So brands know who we are, and that we cherish the message they want to convey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along these lines, I mean, ultimately, how have you seen brands benefit from like investing in retail media, particularly through the Albert Heijn channel?
Yeah, so I think traditionally we're very strong in conversion. So also because we can measure conversion quite well. And also, yeah, the messages of the brands, they're told in the store or online. So when people are ready to buy, they are buying at the moment. So that makes that these messages are very effective, and that we can show evaluations where, advertising on our network really impacts on conversion. So we have large sales uplifts on that. So that's the first part. But we also see in the past years, and we also did more research for that in the upper funnel, we also see a lot of relevant impact of retail media now. So also on brand uplift and also on consideration through qualitative research, which we do with independent agencies and also together with our brands, just to see what works and what doesn't work. We really see that retail media and our retail media has a reason to play and has a very relevant reach and effectiveness. And in a media mix, next to television, next to social, really has the right to play. And those cases, they add up. I think every year we add 4, 5, 6 to 10 of these cases. And in every single case, it's proven that it has its impact through all the marketing funnel.
Yeah. So it becomes, in essence, like you said, a complementary, not a substitute type of piece in regards to your overall media mix, right? Because like you said, it's obviously very precise with regards to the content or the advertising that you show somebody, but also in terms of it's also fit to the touch point as well, as you mentioned,
exactly.
Both physical as well as digital.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear more about how would a brand work with Albert Heijn in regards to setting up or leveraging the retail media network that you all have built? Like, how would a brand go about working with you all in that regard?
So, if I understand you correctly, it all boils down what the brand wants with its campaign. So the briefing is crucial here. What are your goals of this campaign? Is it a relaunch? Is it a new product? Is it brand uplift? Is it et cetera, et cetera. So this briefing is crucial, and we are very thorough on discussing this briefing and making sure that we understand what the brands want. And then I have a team of account managers that will sit down with the brand and we'll discuss, looking at your targets, this kind of campaign with these touch points throughout the full customer experience. We expect to have the highest impact and will help you to get to your targets in the end of the campaign. So it's really an ongoing discussion. But really, that's why I mentioned it. But really, based on the KPIs of the brand itself.
Yeah. So does it? And I saw at Shop Talk that several of your senior leaders presented, and they had a big announcement, right? Because I was going to ask you, does a brand need to be a brand that's listed with you in order to work with you in terms of creating that brief and actually, like you said, really formulating an opportunity there?
No, that's not per se a prerequisite. So we also see more and more cases now at the moment where it's also relevant for, as we call them, non-endemic brands. So brands we don't have a direct sales relationship with, to also share their messages around the network we offer, because it's still in a very brand safe environment. We can also do still a lot of qualitative research. We have a unique reach. We can target on specific target groups that are relevant for this non-endemic brand. So again, all these parameters again also help to have very successful campaigns with products we don't sell at Albert Heijn.
Interesting. And then for the non-endemic brands, is there like a type of profile of non-endemic brand that would typically be advertising on the Albert Heijn network? Is it like a type of brand?
It's not per se that it should be only this group or that group. Obviously, we have a rule set, and we don't allow every advertiser in because of maybe changing rules, also governmental rules. It also needs to fit to the Albert Heijn brand. We obviously do not advertise for Jumbo, so they're allowed to come, but probably it won't work. I think we're quite open to that. And also, Daniel, we need to discover here as well. We're developing, it's new, we're finding fertile ground. So for us, it's also a journey. What works, what doesn't work, where do we think we see a fit?
Yeah. And how do you, like all this activity that you're doing in retail media, I think, at least for me and probably for a lot of our listeners, when we think of retail media, directly we think of online, right? And as you were saying before, the offline side is very important. How are you actually linking and going live with this retail media effort and bringing it in the store?
Yeah, well, obviously, how do we link it? We have closed loop measurements. So we can measure the effectiveness of the campaign throughout the whole customer experience. So we can also see if customers shopped in the store or maybe shopped online, and split the impact that both different touch points have. So that doesn't matter per se. We see that the in-store touch points, they just have different effects than online touch points have. For instance, we've really widened our range of digital out of home. So we added a lot of screens also at the entrance of the store, but also in the side of the store. And yeah, I think that's really like an out of home solution where people walk by the store, not per se enter the store, but still are confronted with advertisements, stories, etc., that brands communicate to them. So it really all has a function of its own, and we need to add things up to again come to the targets that we have for these campaigns.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, Rolf, I think the message that a brand would want to convey in one of those digital out-of-home touch points is different than what they would want to convey, for example, in the aisle where their product is sold. And
obviously,
it's with understanding the journey and figuring out what's the right message at the right time.
So obviously, I think in the out-of-home it will be more about brand lift and awareness, and in the aisle it will be more about conversion and point of sale. So that's, I think, it would be a main differentiator between the two.
And
go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you, like, with all the, as Efrain said, we were both at Shop Talk here in Barcelona recently, and obviously there's apart from a lot of conversation on how to go to market and the strategy, also a lot of tech development there, and we've had some people here on the show as well talking about analytics, etc. How do you keep up to date with the latest technology just to keep up your game? And being very big company, sometimes it's difficult to implement technological changes. So how are you pushing that?
Yeah, of course. So that was a major topic the past years. What our strategy should be like, and in the end, we took a stake in an ad tech company, which is called Adheise, based in Belgium. And we decided to create our own ad tech stack to make sure that we could build our own tech, which was necessary for our goals, and be a little bit less dependent on what's now available in the market, also from the big tech companies. So be in the driver's seat of your own priorities. I think that's the first. And then I think a second is being control over a bigger part of the full value chain. So that's why we took this minority stake into Adhese. And we've been building on for instance, on our self-service platform quite heavily, and we'll announce big innovations just after summer on this as well. So big investments there, and we really made the decision to build the stack ourselves.
So if there are brands who are interested, who are listening to this, and they would like to, in essence, work with your team to learn more about the platform and how they could think about leveraging the retail media network that you're building, what would be the best way? Is it to reach out to you? Is there?
Yeah, just reach out to me, and let's see if we can open discussions on that. Obviously, we're thoroughly building on this network still. It being a big priority, but if companies have questions or want to talk more about how we develop things, what would be their necessities, discussions with non-competing companies, I'm more than willing to open to do that. So
Excellent. Well, this has been very informative, and as Daniel and I both saw, but also mentioned on the podcast, there's a lot of exciting news coming from you all at Albert Heijn with regards to the retail media network. So, looking forward to see what's coming next. We have one last question that we like to ask all of our guests, and this is actually one that really kind of in essence starts to draw from your own experience over your career and everything you've learned. And the question is, what is the one piece of advice you would give yourself if you go back in time and talk to you as you were first coming out of university? What would be that?
Yeah, sure. So, that's a very nice question. It's I got a big background in sourcing and merchandising, so not per se in the marketing things, let alone retail media. So, but knowing in the position that I'm right now and all the great topics that I'm working on, and all the booming stuff around retail media, I wouldn't expect myself to be there on this topic when I was coming out of university. So my main advice would be to myself would be, don't focus too much on your next step. Just focus on what you're doing right now, and then great opportunities will always come ahead of myself. So don't just live in the moment a little bit. Also in your corporate moment.
This was Rolf Oosterhoff from Albert Heijn. Efrain, what are your thoughts after this conversation with the supermarket of the blue bag?
Well, I think it's one is, as a consumer, it's interesting to hear the amount of innovation that the leader in the retail and grocery retail for the Netherlands has done, right? So it's always interesting to hear that they're constantly innovating. I also think it was really interesting just to hear the scale that they offer, right? So like you asked me at the very beginning, what was the top of mind grocery retailer of choice? And, the facts that Rolf threw out there just validated that, right? So 40 million interactions per week that they're recording through their network, through their platforms, and 80% consumer penetration. Those are for their club card or their loyalty card. Again, those are really impressive numbers in regards to like representing the market.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that how we linked loyalty card with retail media. I mean, with those numbers, it only makes sense, no? But I think it's a very interesting example, and probably a market like the Netherlands, which is a very strong economy, very highly developed country, probably is one to watch for future developments and to trial things. And that's probably why, for example, they were one of the first to build a retail media network in-house.
Absolutely. And I think, they're really kind of in essence blazing new trails for Europe in the grocery retail space, right? Because like you said, they're one of the first to build that retail media network. And the way they've done it is also really interesting as well, which is both through acquisition, but also through homegrown development as well. And I think it just demonstrates again the commitment to innovation that they have.
Yeah, and they must be doing things well because they have one of the highest conversion rates in the market. And I liked also how we talked about, for example, not only the bottom of the funnel, but also using qualitative research to measure the upper funnel. So I think that they're starting to control like the whole value proposition for brand and retail media, right?
No doubt. And again, it's all done in the service of a seamless shopping experience, right? Which is what I think, again, from a brand partner standpoint, that's what we're all striving to deliver, right? And to be able to engage with our consumers through.
Yeah, and also I think that there's a high level of engagement with the brands and the way that they talk about the importance of the briefing. So really what they're talking there is about like a strong partnership between retailer and brand ultimately.
No doubt. And, I think that we can go back to what David Ogilvy said years ago, which is give me the freedom of a tight brief, right? So I think it all starts with a good brief, whether you're talking about creative or whether you're talking about data analytics, right? Again, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, when an executive search as well, I always tell my clients, we have to dedicate a lot of time to the initial brief because that will help a lot for the search to be successful. And ultimately, what did you think of the aspect of non-endemic brands?
I think, again, given the scale, particularly in the Netherlands market, that they've been able to achieve through their loyalty card program and now extending into retail media, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? For a brand that, maybe it's not even in a category that's necessarily directly relevant to grocery trips, but just in terms of the reach that network can offer to general consumers in the Netherlands, it's very, really attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again to Rolf for coming in with us and talking about Albert Heijn's retail media offering. Thanks to you guys, the listeners as well. It's great to have you accompanying us in this journey, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys.